It's your boy, Chris C-Walkz Walker. Today, I'm just going to tell you right now. What's up, guys? It's your boy, Chris C-Walkz Walker. Today, um, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be a long video, so if you don't want to attend to it, it's fine. But for those that y'all that want to, sorry, I'm trying to fix my beat. For those y'all that want to, feel free to enjoy this. But today it's I want to tell y'all the story of uh, 20 this is 20 years that my uncle Arthur Ray Johnson has been gone. So I'm gonna talk to y'all about the day, and I'm gonna talk to y'all life after his passing. On that day, it was just a normal day at school. I was in first grade at Thomas Elementary, and just enjoying my day. In Miss Robinson's class. In that class, if I remember correctly, I just remember one person in that class, and it was me and Julian Cockrell. We were actually sitting side by side in that desk, in between the desk. All I remember from that day was there's a projector. Never get called on the projector. I was playing pin wrestling. Julian was playing pin wrestling. It's pretty much pin wrestling. It's pretty much where you have two pencils and just Anywho, so after school, I was getting picked up by Stephanie Mosley, which is for those of y'all, Zach Mosley's mother, and she was to take me home from school that day. And so on the way to the house, we stopped by I lived at my grandma's house at the time. They had an orange house on Luzon, and I was expecting to go inside and see Uncle Arthur, or we just called him Arthur, and no one answered the door. No one. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe he went somewhere. Maybe Granny and Mom, they went somewhere. Because at the time, my mom worked at the state school, and my grandma just retired from the state school. And so I ended up going up the street to, Miss Mosley's house, and we just sat there. And as we were pulling out, I swear I saw Arthur chasing me. Not chasing me, running down the yard. Say, hey, wait, I'm here. So I was telling, Stephanie or Miss Mosley that, hey, I just saw Arthur. Can we just turn around and pull back? But by then we were already up the street. So then, I kid you not, Miss Mosley drove up in the driveway and then came back and then went back down the street of Luzon to my grandma's house. So I got out the car, and next thing I know, I went inside the house, and Arthur was not in there at all. He was not in there. I looked in his room. There was nothing there. So I'm thinking maybe he's not home yet. He just left or whatever. But I noticed as I looked further down the hallway, my mom and my grandma were sitting on the bed. And then this is at the point where I was saying, hey, where did Arthur go? Da da da, yada yada yada. And they told me that my uncle passed. My uncle's not coming back. He's dead. He's gone. And I'm 7 years old, and I'm in disbelief. I'm like, but I just saw him. I saw him running with his blue robe out the house trying to chase Stephanie. I saw him. I kept that story to this day. I'm like, I saw him. But then, my mom and my grandma stated that he's been dead since 12:11 this morning. And I'm like, but I just saw him. So then at that point, it started to kick in that, they weren't lying to me. and I started like crying real, real bad, really hard. Um, it was like I cried so hard that I feel like I died that day too. Like I was having that out of body experience with the fact that my uncle was gone. Now, the reason why I probably should have said this before, but I want to tell you why I was crying so hard. And it's probably this will get your understanding a little bit before I get back to the main story. So, of course, I never had a father in my life. Never was raised with one. I kind of said that thousands of times that I lived my life without a father. But you know, at the time I was living at my grandma's house. Me, mom, my sister, and granny. And Arthur took me on a lot of trips to the dollar store. Sometimes for breakfast he made me some cinnamon toast with extra sweet cinnamon, and then sometimes he put syrup on it. Sometimes put white syrup or corn syrup, as y'all say. Um, and we watched Blue's Clues together. We watched the Teletubbies at the time. It was Teletubbies. We watched NASCAR. We watched the Addams Family. And then we go outside, dig some holes, and play golf and stuff, or walk up and down the street. Just basic things that he was willing to do for me. That dad like experience. Sometimes we would go to the park and just get to have that bonding time with him, and something that I wanted. I get to go home and say, well, although I don't have a dad, I can go home and have my uncle there, to bond with and stuff like that. Now granted, he wasn't going to catch no football, but he did. We did one time throw through the a boomerang outside one time. They ended up getting stuck in Miss Morgan's tree, and I looked at him and was like, oh well, I guess we're just getting another one. But stuff like that, I was like, I was very happy that I was a very happy person at the time. Everything was going right. The lines, stars were in line, just and he even taught me some math, the value of mathematics. Because we had this little thing where you put a disc in and then you flip it over. You have this paper, so everywhere you're and then you write the answer down, or what do you think is the answer, and then you go to the next question, and then so forth. It's like a wheel, and then once you get the end, you get to open it and see what all questions you got right and stuff. I don't know if anybody know about that, but I used to like adore it. And then stuff that a dad would do, my uncle did for me. Which brings me to now, when my uncle passed, I was like, that's when for me, it's like the system has changed. Because now, in my head, as a 7-year-old, I'm like, I am now living in a house full of females. This is terrible. This is beyond terrible. And I felt alone for the first time in the household, and I was like, I have no one to connect with. I have no one. I started to have these notions in my head. I was like, I have no one to do anything with me. The things that I like, I now have to do it myself. The things, the outside walks, the bonding over shows, it was catastrophic. Because, in my head, I was like, I am now the only male alive, or at least in the household. I was just devastated. I was crying. I didn't even want to be at home anymore because there was nobody that I could connect to. It's like, and that's probably some of my reasons why my problems today, which I'll get to that later. But it was like, a lot of people say at the time, Now I know times change now because there's studies showing that this could happen, but at the time, I was experiencing grief more than I probably the rest of my family. I would say I was hurt more than the rest, and it it was it was hard to see, to experience grief, experience these, I guess, the six phases of grief. You got the disbelief, then you got the grieving process. I was hitting it hard, and a lot of people will say at the time, like, "Oh, he's young. He won't, he won't remember this day, or he doesn't know what he's feeling and stuff like that." You betcha, but I did. So I just completely stopped talking to anybody in my family at that time. I'm 7 years old, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I went to school as the years go by, as the days go by. That I went to school, getting ready to go to, bury my uncle. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want. I was at a point, that I wouldn't be in that coffin with him. That's how I felt. At a 7-year-old, I was like, all right, I lived enough life. I wanted to be in that coffin with them so I can lay to rest with them. And we buried him on Valentine's Day, which is was the main reason why I do not like Valentine's Day, because it reminds me of the day that I had to lay to rest my uncle. And it was a hard day. It was hard because I was fixated on him leaving the world forever. And this is where I believe the bullying started for me. It was, I just had multiple episodes where I just want to cry. I had multitudes of episodes where, I wanted to just give up. I had multitudes of episodes where my behavior changed. I was more angry. This is where I kind of flipped the switch, as you should say. Because, I was at the point, what's the point of living now? What's the point? I'm by myself. I'm on my own. Of course, I got my mom, my grandma, my sister, at the time, Nana, before she passed later in the year as well. That would be in another video in July. I'll tell you about that in July. But anyways, but I just, it was so much females in the house, and I'm the only male in the house. I'm pretty much walking on my own, and it was a boring life. Now I'm older, I got used to it, but at the time I was like, there's nobody that I can talk to. Nobody. And I've lost the one person I could talk to about anything. And I just was devastated. I was like, and then at school I was just losing friends left and right. My friends were turning on me, bullying me, because I just kept crying. I was still, I was 6 months, 7 months deep, and I'm still crying about my uncle's death. By then I'd be second grade. And they were like, "Cry baby Chris, why you always crying, Chris?" And it was just, I had to hear it. And the thing about second graders, is they don't know what's going on, and it's not their fault. I knew what was going on with me because I'm sad. I was at school, but I was not at school. I was physically, yes, I'm at school, but mentally, I'm still thinking about my uncle, and it's been 7, 8 months since his death, and Of course, in that same time frame, I lost my nana, who's named Desi Mae Johnson. I lost my nana during the summer of that same year, so I'm just in a wreck. It was like TKO for me, and and then I had to go to school knowing that I've lost two people in the same calendar year, and I was finished. Friends that I had in first grade are no longer my friends second grade because I'm crying too damn much. You know, and for me, I was like, I didn't want to be. And then on top of that, my second grade teacher made fun of me too because I kept crying, and she kept sending me to the principal's office, or I got detention, after school detention, because I was crying too dang much. And then this is where people wanted to, my friends turn on me. This is where I got in trouble for instead of helping me, some of the teachers encouraged me. Some of these friends that I know who went to church end up not helping me. And it was I was I and this was the point where I was like, what can I possibly do to make myself happy? So then I had a great relationship with the Thomas Elementary librarian at the time, and I looked up, and there was these countries' flags, these countries' flags on here, and I just wanted to, kept drawing them. I was drawing country flags at the time because I was just admired by it. Look at all these different flags, these countries. So I took interest in starting learning, different countries, And then I looked at their flag, and then I started drawing, and then I started giving them to the librarian, and she appreciated it. She was like, "Okay, So she told me to keep drawing flags. So that's what I've been doing the whole second period, and then it made me happy. And then I wanted to learn, different. I checked out different states' books, at the time, because might as well do something for myself since I ain't gonna get that happiness from any of my friends or anything. I was pretty much on an island of my own. And then I had this one episode in second grade. We had a substitute who ended up being my ninth grade English teacher. Her name is Miss Phillips. So we had to write something about. We all had a piece of paper one day, and we had to write about somebody it was right around Valentine's Day. This is at the year mark point. It was right around Valentine's Day where Miss Phillips gave us assignments, say, hey, let's write about something that we love. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. It wasn't in my DNA. It was like, I don't love nothing anymore. And then I started crying. I was like, because the only person that I loved to be around with was my uncle, and he's gone. So I didn't have. Hang on a second. Sorry, my alarm went off. But the one person that I loved is gone. Well, then they have the discussion like, well, how would you write something about your mother? And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Part of that was at the time because my mom worked so much that I didn't spend time with her much. I was spending time with my uncle, and and he done all the stuff for me and stuff. But I just I started crying. I was like, and eventually everybody went to recess, and I ended up getting sent to the counselor at Thomas. Her name is Miss Brown. No relations to my landlord, Miss Brown, but so I had many talks. They got me to a program of you're going to talk to this counselor, and she took my case, took me very seriously a lot. She was like, I want you to come to my office at least 2 times a week, and we talk. And I gave it in, and then she was like, and then she told my mom, so I think he needs, I think he's, this is, depression. Um, and this is where I kind of started having my autism, spectrum disorder, Asperger's, as they say, because you know, I, you know, they were like, well, we want him to get diagnosed for that, because I was in my own world because I didn't want to be in the real world. Like, I'm getting made fun of because they don't know that my uncle died. I'm getting made fun of because in the same calendar year, my nana died. And so then it was a decision. My mom then made the decision after Miss Brown contacted her to, you know, talk to Dr. Murphy. Talk to Dr. Murphy, who's my therapist in Fort Worth. And they were like, well, my son. She was at the end of the road at that time. She was like, my son continuously cry. My son continuously don't want to talk. My son continuously, unactive, don't want to be here. I think I was 8 years old. And I was thinking suicidal was the option. I just wanted to be with my uncle. It was that bad. And so my mom talked to my therapist in Fort Worth, and then we had an emergency point. I ended up moving to Fort Worth at Children's Cook Hospital to finish the remainder of my second grade year. And I was so finished being in this world at 8 years old. I undergo, I guess a lot of people say rehab, but it was I would say it was a therapeutical school for children, obviously, who are experiencing things that are unexplainable that adults will experience. For me, it was deep depression, and this is where I got diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and the insomnia came in because I was so depressed. So these were the next two disorders, the next three actually, that I got diagnosed with. During these 2 weeks of me being in this school, so this is the part where I tell you I lived in Fort Worth. It was not because I wanted to, it's because I needed help with finding ways to manage the depression, managing my feeling of not being loved, feeling of, acceptance, because I was not ready to accept that he was gone, and it's been a year at this point. I was not happy with the flip. I didn't want to talk to nobody. At the rec or juveniles, I was getting made fun of. Schools getting made fun of. My own street, I started getting in fights because I was crying too much. And there was a whole bunch of things that laid it up for me to say, I had enough. But, I went through those classes in the next 2 weeks, and then I went back to Abilene, and then third grade came along. Still had my episodes, but it wasn't as bad as, third, fourth, and fifth. I started crying quite a bit, and this is where the bullyingness actually took headstrong. Was fifth, I'll say fourth and fifth grade. I was just there at that point. Fourth grade, this was a point where I was getting a lot of sexual jokes. I was getting a lot of, Chris, you're gay and all that stuff, and your team sucks, or, Chris, why did you bring this? Because nobody wants to hang out with you, part of it was because I was still getting made fun of because I was crying too much about a loss that I had. There was this one day in Miss Kidlet's class where I brought dominoes because, I brought dominoes, and I was ready to teach people how to play dominoes. And then other people brought, other kids brought other games and stuff, and I was waiting for somebody to play dominoes with me, and I ultimately was the only one that played dominoes by myself. Um, and it's I you know I don't blame myself for crying about my loss for all these years. It's just that I kind of thought about it for long. It's like, if I didn't cry about my uncle's death, I could have still had these friends. But what's done is done. I cried and I got made fun of for it. Plus, I was getting acne at the time. Also, I was getting made fun of because my sister don't talk to me or don't want to associate with me, and that's another story because me and my sister, we didn't talk. And if we did, it was either us arguing at each other, or I'm always getting kicked out of her room, or I was just, at the time, I just wanted to get my sister's attention. So yes, I took things, I'd done things, and, made her mad, but at least I had the satisfaction of her talking to me. And I honestly just, wasn't able to get a lick of conversation with my sister. And, so it was not great at home either, while I was mourning. Fifth grade, fourth and fifth grade, I had a bully in the same street that I lived in with my grandma, and there was one day that he punched me like right here on my neck, and I fell back and I hit the curb on that same neck side that he got, and the whole bus was just laughing. I was just laid there. I was like, this hurts. It took my mom and so to take somebody found me, and they called my mom, and I went straight to the hospital, the children's my physician at the time was Dr. Masalinka, and I couldn't move my neck and stuff like that. This is the part where I was getting beat up, and still getting made fun of in school, but I and then sports. I was good, but I was still getting bullied because I was crying. Sixth grade came. Things were a little easier. I was like, okay, I'm in a new school. Let's make things happen. Sixth grade was kind of where I stand. Like, where do I stand here? Seventh grade, I started sports, and I was like, yes, this is my moment to change the narrative. So I basketball, football. I was wearing number 14 for football and basketball because that was the day. I wanted something to wear to remind me that my uncle was still, with me. I couldn't get number 10 because that was the day that February 10th was the day he died. So I wore number 14, because it reminds me that my uncle was still with me. That was the day that he died on Valentine's Day, and I wanted to wear 14. So that's why I wore number 14 for both 7th and 8th grade year. And then in basketball, for whatever reason, I wore number 12 because I was obsessed with Dwight Howard at the time. With Dwight Howard for the Orlando Magic, which is, I actually have his jersey right there when he was in Orlando. But anyways, so 7th grade was good. A lot of people I started making more friends because we're in the locker room with the boys, and then it kind of, this is where it also affected me when I say I struggle with relationships. It's not the fact that I get rejected by females. It's the fact that I just don't want to experience the fact of I put everything I have in one person, and then it's gone. And later in life, I went through that a lot of times. But I just, if I want to find somebody, I want somebody that I can say, is there for the long haul. Because I ain't got to worry about them leaving anytime soon. Because I know that no matter what happens, I can go see this person. And but it's just the feeling of you know of something that you care about so much, and then just like that, it gets taken away from you. Which also reminds me why during my later state of my elementary years, my mom tried to get me in the Boys and Girls Club. Not Boys and Girls, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and a lot of people has heard about that. It's a program where I guess college students will spend time with a child, and they take them places and stuff like ice cream, whatever. Well, we did that. My mom signed me up for that, and then I did go out as a first, but because I was too much to handle, they ended up just abandoning me. Not once, not one of them. It happened twice. So then, I came to the conclusion that, maybe I'm just too much. Maybe I just got too much problems. And maybe I was just a child that was just too much for the world. And then the summer of 8th grade came. I was getting bullied at church, at the old church I went to, and the pastor kids were making fun of me, the deacons kids were making fun of me. Everybody was gravitating towards my sister when I can't even get friends that were in my age group to want to talk to me. So I had to deal with that too. And then 8th grade came, summer of 8th grade. I transitioned to another church, which is later the church I still go to this day. I was 13 years old at the time, and I immediately saw people that I went to the rec with. So I was like, all right, cool. So then I was on the swivel. I was like, I'm at a church where nobody knows me. I'm at a church where I can have a fresh start. And it's literally just down the street from my grandma's house. And so, I was going to these, there was this one outing in Dallas where we had the connection trip. And then that was cool. That was a good start for me to get to know people. Plus, I love dodgeball. We played glow in the dark dodgeball. That was awesome. And then we later on went to the infamous 2010 Lake Brownwood God's Love Bank Youth Conference. When I say infamous, because I feel like no matter what happened, all the youth trips after that, I still feel like this was probably the best one yet, the best ever. And because I ain't saying because your boy performed that day, but I'm saying because it's just that there was just too much memories, too much memories for everybody about that day. I'll just start me. I went to Brownwood. That was actually the first time I was away from my mom for 6 days, ever. So I was a little scared. I was like, oh man, I'm away from my mom for 6 days by myself. So, I was having a dose of the real world. I was like, well, let's make some memories. I deserve this. I'm here with this church. I owe myself to have something good happen in my life. I spent the last 6 years sad and wanted to go that I deserve some happiness over the last 7 years being sad about my uncle. That I kind of deserve something to look forward to. But I didn't know what it was going to be. I really didn't. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew something had to be done for myself because I owe myself to continuate my life and see happiness. So I ended up getting baptized at that church conference after Brother Savoy talked about listen. And boy, I listened. I was like, this guy told me to listen, so where's my camera at? I'm listening. So, anywho, and all I hear is the water calling my name. And then Emily Day was like, I think you see the water, Chris. I think it's time, Chris. I was like, yeah, I need to. This is it. This is it. So, the person who actually baptized me was Brandon Osborne. And then, afterwards, I was crying. I was like, I was crying hard. I was like, and then I was crying so hard that I tripped on another rock and I got baptized the second time because my face planted back into the lake. Oh, that hurt. But I was already crying, so if I was crying in pain, it was just icing on the cake. So, and then afterwards, that same day, after I got baptized. By the way, that same day, that baptism, Brittany Taylor got baptized, Michael White got baptized, I believe Sandy Medina, Autumn and Alexis, all 5 of us got baptized on that youth trip. All 5 of us in Lake Brownwood. So out of Minda, me, Michael, Brittany, Autumn, and Alexis were baptized that day. Oh, and Sandy Medina. So, but anywho, so literally after that, I was like, I've been working on, I'm sure if Michael has his YouTube videos still. There's this video where I was practicing. I just so happened to look at the talent show sign up, and I was like, I ain't got nothing to lose. I don't know these people. I'm just gonna write my name because I deserve something happiness for myself. And if it's just something that I say, what the heck with it. So I saw my name on the talent show, and I said I was gonna do rap. Got up to the stage, it was my turn, and I was like, because me and Zach was been working on it, and Michael and Sandy were in there too. And then so I didn't think my rap song was going to have a big pop and alter the rest of my life. But I got up there and song I Need a Benjamin. Now, the problem with this song, it doesn't have any lyrics. It has it has the main lyrics that I want to sing, but it didn't have nothing in the middle, like cheese, like the beef, like the yada yada. It didn't have that. So on the spot, I literally made up some lyrics. I rolled a 9. I said I told myself a millionaire. Told myself I want to be a millionaire, but I said I want to be a bingeonaire. That was on the spot. I was thinking like, all right, let's do that. It got probably the biggest pop ever. And it, I didn't think that rap song would have got viral like it did. It did. And instead of being just another church member, I became C-Walkz, or as Zach put it, the legendary Chris C-Walkz Walker. And I just been so stories that I had, and this was the start that the dice was going to be in the pendulum was going to swing now in my favor. I was at that point where I can care less about what the world says as long as people are finally noticing that there's something good about me other than crying. I'm all for it, And I got to Minda that Sunday, and brother Roach at the time was like, I'm gonna stop my sermon for a bit. And here's me just sitting here. I was sitting next to Michael White. He was on his iPad, and I was watching him on his iPad. And Michael also had this little slide up phone where you could text right here and just. So then I was just looking at him. And then next thing I know, Brother Roach looks at me. He was like, "Benjamin, come here." I was like, I done it this time. Well, first I didn't know who the heck he was talking to because my name is Chris. But then he was like, "Benjamin." His name is Chris. And then and he said something. He was like, "This man rocked the Minda God's Love Bank. I want him to sing that song. I need a Benjamin." And here I am at the moment. It has nothing to do with Jesus at all. I don't know if he knows about it, but it has nothing to do with Jesus. So I did the rap song, I Need a Benjamin. And, I had the whole church on their feet. I had the whole church, and it was packed. Had the whole church on their feet singing my song that I made. I brought a tear in my eye. It really did, because for once something was going in my favor. For once. And, to go through 7 years of not having a single person believe in me, to having 7 years of people wanted to not talk to me, to not wanting to, check and see how I was doing, to, going from that 7 years of pain, of losing it all, to having the whole church, a church that I just came into 3 months ago, stood up to a 14-year-old rapping about I Need a Benjamin. There was about almost 100 people standing up. I thought it was just the youth. I thought it was just a one and done thing. I really did. At the church conference, I had 250 people standing, getting hyped about my I Need a Benjamin song. And that's just people in my age group. But it means more that it kept going, to another 105 people in that church, just standing up, all of them clapping, shouting, putting their hands up for I Need a Benjamin. I started, I sat down and I started crying a little bit because, that was the best 2 days I could have ever had, because I couldn't even get one person to stand up for me in those 7 years. Went through bullying for 7 years. After my uncle's death, and to now coming to the Minda for 2 consecutive days singing this rap song, let alone Brother Roach giving me a chance to rap a song that has nothing to do with God or Jesus or anything, and to stop a sermon just for that. That was probably the highlight of my Minda moment. Granted, you have I'm to be truthful, I am not I cannot sing worth a flip. I am not a song leader at the church. I am not anything to do with leadership at my church. But to have that moment of when everybody stood up. And it was just a monumental moment for me because I saw in those 2 days that things are getting better for me. Things are now rolling. I finally started to now see what's ahead of me after my uncle's death. And, you know, I wish so much that my uncle got to see me go through 7 years of that and then start to have the next 14 years of a more happier life, and it didn't stop at just the church. It went through my school. People, heard about my rap song and they kept asking me to rap, freestyle raps. I remember, I walk into, Allen High for the first time and I had a basketball, seventh period, and at the time, I knew Cassius. I met Cassius quite a bit throughout our younger days. He used to go to Macedonia and stuff like that. And then, so I had Cassius at the time. He was with the freshman guys before he moved up to the JV and varsity guys. But, anyways, Cassius was like, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And just 3 days later, Cassius showed me the video that I did at the church. He was like, "Is that you? Your C-Walkz?" And I was like, because Grant Cassius knew anybody and everybody. He knows a lot of people. And for him to come up to me and be like, "Hey, I saw your rap. I liked it." And I'm looking at him like, "You did?" Like, "Yeah, I want you to spit some bars and stuff like that. Freestyle Friday, C-Walkz, C-Walkz, C-Walkz." And, I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, I was like, dang, Cassius wants to hang out with me and stuff, And, I was just very happy about it because, I saw things were getting better. People were starting to see the creativity side of me and, seeing something good for me, And then it became, Calvin and then some of the JV guys, Calvin McGee and them, and then Michael Williams, the late Michael Williams, I should say, came to me and said, "C-Walkz Freestyle Friday, this is yo," and I was freestyling and everybody got hyped. And then from there I started, I went to breakfast and some of the JV and varsity guys wanted me to hang out with them. Like Jarvis, Joseph Campost, Josh Anderson. They were like, "Hey, C-Walkz, you sitting with us for breakfast." And then, so I sat next to them. I was like, I thought I didn't belong sitting with them, but they were like, "You come sit with us." And, I was thinking to myself, like, me, right? Me. So, yeah, they were like, yeah, you come sit with us. You cool with us. So, I sat with them. I'm not even a JV or varsity basketball player. I'm on the freshman team. To be to me at that time, to be a freshman and hang out with the JV and varsity guys, that was like a badge of honor. And, I knew these guys, weren't playing when they were like, "Hey, C-Walkz, you want to hang out? You want to hoop with us like at the Family Life Center or somewhere else?" I was like, "Yeah." So that's, I started to build my, some of the guys, basketball guys. And then when I got moved to C-Lunch, I think Jarvis and came up to me and be like, "Chris, you got C-Lunch?" I was like, "What are you doing here, Chris?" And he was like, "C-Walkz, what are you doing?" I was like, "I got C-Lunch now." He was like, "How did you get that?" I was like, "Because of the band." I'm like, "You sit with us. You sit with us. We gotta speak. We gotta see just for you right here." I started, and that's when I started making more friends. Like, I was hanging out with the basketball guys, and they wanted me there. And I was just, I was seeing, I was finally seeing the better side of it. I was sitting with them that whole freshman year with breakfast, sitting next we'll lunch in with them, you know. And then when like a cute senior girl came in, Jarvis was like, or some of the guys were like, "Hey, that's C-Walkz." Like there was one, I kid you not, true story. There was one time I came into the breakfast one day, and you know I sat down, and then there was this, and then you know I was hanging out with the basketball people for breakfast, and next you know there was this cute girl, and one of the seniors was like, "Hey, that's C-Walkz right there." I think she was like, "Why is there a freshman there?" He said, "He ain't supposed to sit with us." He said, "Nah, he's C-Walkz. He's cool with us." And then she was like, "Oh, you're C-Walkz?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." And then she was like, "Oh, you got your backpack unzipped, so let me zip it." So she zipped it up, and I was like, "Well, dang." You know, so I mean, you know, things were like leveling up to be better. I started to get away that phase of just crying and start just living my life again. I had a little restart since that you know those 7 years. Um, you know, sophomore year, you know, some of those senior guys are gone, and some, you know, they were like, you know, I didn't really sit with the basketball guys much because I didn't have lunch with them anymore. But you know, the band, you know, was calling me C-Walkz too, and I got Mr. Walker to call me C-Walkz once. That was probably like a milestone right there, but more on Mr. Walker in a bit. So you know, I was doing band because my mom did it, and I wanted to continue that legacy. So I as well did band, and I loved it. And you know, I love my band family. I do. If I, you know, have time to talk to every last one of them, I would, you know, because, you know, I consider them as my brothers and sisters. You know, I didn't talk to them, you know, I lied. I did talk to most of them because I just didn't go to those little house meetings. I went to one. That's it. Just to see how it was. But other than that, I didn't really do much with the band, but I did talk to them. You know, some of the underclassmen saw that, you know, I wasn't, you know, like the other senior or the upperclassmen. They were like, "Hey, see, how come we don't do that?" I was like, "That's not my style. You know, I just like to say I'm in band and play my instrument real good and just handle my business, you know." You know, granted, you had a lot of band members that were very preppy, very excited, you know, all that stuff. I was the physical type. Like, I was at a point where demerits don't phase me. Some of the upperclassmen were struggling doing it. Here's me. I do this in track all the time. Basketball. So, yeah. Anyways, you know, so some of the underclassmen kind of hung out with me quite a bit more than some of the upperclassmen. Because I was just the one that was just laid back. I was like, here's me wearing sweaters and stuff. And well, I'm just like, there was times where some of the upperclassmen were practicing their instrument. I was just chilling. And I was like, do 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 do, and you know, I end up, you know, junior year that's when I got my leather jacket. I was very excited about that. Sports and stuff. Senior year is very important because two things happened. Mr. Walker letting me conduct the band for the first time. I'm not even a drum major. Not a drum major. I wasn't picked to be a drum major. I wasn't none of that stuff. Actually, three things happened that year. But you know, I got to conduct the band for a day. I didn't win no award either to do that. I was just messing around. I was BSing, and then Mr. Walker came to me like, "Hey, I want you to." He said, "Why you playing? I want you to conduct that." I was like, "What?" Like the whole class was shocked, and I was shocked too. I was like, "I'm getting the opportunity to conduct the band. Heck yeah!" and Mr. Wall was like, "You're going a little too slow." I was like, "Pick it up." I was like, "All right, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir." I was gravitating all that moment. Second thing that happened was we went to Carroll, Texas for the South Lake Carroll game. I didn't even have my instrument that day. They left it at the school. Not my fault. Didn't get no demerit for it. But anyways, and then after halftime, all I hear was a C-Walkz chant in the home section of South Lake Carroll. I was like, oh, South Lake Carroll's chanting C-Walkz. I was like, I immediately, and Jonathan, who was it? It was somebody in my section. It was Secca, Josh Secca. He came to me, he's like, I think they're chanting C-Walkz. And then there was like three other people like, they're chanting C-Walkz. In my band, I was like, they're chanting C-Walkz. Oh, so I was like, man, South Lake Carroll apparently knew who I am. That was a little bit of a kind of made it moment. Third thing that happened was the last home game of the year. And, the band picked 6-letter words. Well, what do you know? C-Walkz is a 6-letter word. And I think, usually the trombones pick with the words. And they looked behind me and they were like, this is for you, C-Walkz. We're going to do C-Walkz. They said, we're doing C-Walkz. I was like, I said, give me an E. They were like, C. Give me an A. And they were like, W. Give me a G. A. Give me a L. L. Give me an E. K. Give me a S. Z. C-Walkz. C-Walkz. I was like, dude, man, I made it. And then they gave me a round of applause. I was like, I have 300 people giving me a round of applause. Oh, I was like, I was looking at it. I was like, I started crying a little bit. That was the last home game. They could have picked my last home game of my high school career. And they could have picked any 6-letter word, but they picked C-Walkz. I cried. I kid you not, I started crying. I was like, that was my moment. That was my moment right there. Some more moments. My mom had a band shirt that's called C-Walkz Mom. And my mom walked into Shawa and she got bombarded with a lot of people, saying, you're C-Walkz Mom, you're C-Walkz Mom, that's C-Walkz, man, hey, that's a C-Walkz Mom. She got bombarded. And it's like, it was even better when my mom was surrounded by, people that wanted to know my mom and how she raised C-Walkz or myself. She told me that. I was like, Chris, I have never been bombarded like that in a day in my life. And I was like, it's like, well, I told my mom, I said, well, I guess I made it now, Mama. So, it was just things that made my alter, some things that I wish my uncle got to see, his nephew made it in the world, got a nickname that came from I Need a Benjamin. Of course, I made a lot more raps since then, but, and then it continued long after high school, and the thing about it is I'm 27 years old. 27 years old, and I look back at the things that happened after my uncle's death, and I look back at things, after 2010 that changed my perception of life. And, I wish my uncle saw a C-Walkz nickname become the talk of the town or talk of the nation. I wish I could see the face of my uncle when I made my won basketball games. Dunked the basketball. you know, win gold medals, which are up there and over there. I wish I saw my uncle got to witness me do great things in the midst of hard times. I wish, my uncle was still here. I wish that, I didn't have to endure being bullied. I wish I didn't have to endure it all, but at the same time, I would never change the story. The story made me who I am. My uncle's death gave me feelings that I wasn't ready for yet. And it took years to conquer. It took years to see that life will get better if you just hang on, stay in the fight. That was the only thing that I can legitimately say that God spoke to me. He said things will get better if you still hang on. And they did. It took 7 years, but it did. From 2004 to 2010, I went through the 6 roughest years of my life. From 2010 to 2024, I went through the greatest 14 years of my life. And I owe that by giving myself a chance. I owe that to myself to give life another shot. And I did. And now, I'm at a point where, I've tasted the mountaintop. I've also tasted the dirt, the boo-boo, the crustacean. Searching to climb the totem pole. And now I own the whole totem pole. And probably the next ones too. But I give credit to giving myself a chance again in life. A lot of people say that in 2010 I mentioned that I got baptized. I buried my depression. It still comes. But I buried the fact that I'm going to stay depressed. I buried the fact that I was going to be isolated, stop being isolated. I buried the fact that I was, I'm not going to lay in the same coffin as my uncle. I buried the fact that I'm going to not talk to people. And then when I came up, I promised myself to give life a second chance. And look at me now. And, 20 years has gone by. 20 years. The roughest 20 years that has transpired. But, a lot of people say, oh, I got bullied. I wish I wasn't. Me, I was like, I'm at a point where I own. I won't change being bullied. If I would live life a second time, I would choose this life a second time. Because this life that I'm living right now, I've learned things. I'm stronger because I endured those things. And I hope that these, my story of how life was before my uncle's death and life after my uncle's death can inspire somebody like it did me. I really hope that anybody who listens, you may not ever listen to this story, but I just want you to know that loss hurts anybody in severe ways. If you see your child crying, ask him why they're crying. Don't just assume it's just bothering. Ask the child why they're crying, because it could save what I had to. Don't be fooled because a child something happens and your child don't understand. You assume that your child don't understand what happens. They do know what this is going on. They do know that something is out of place. They could experience, because of me, a lot of people are evaluating that children as young as 4 years old could have bipolar. I was once diagnosed with bipolar because of this incident, but it later to be Asperger's and depression and insomnia on top of my ADHD. If you don't have answers for your child that's going through a lot mentally, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do the ultimate, because it's better to do the ultimate than not do anything at all. My mom had to make that choice. She may not have liked the choice she made, but she made the choice of doing the ultimate. And taking me to Fort Worth, leaving life behind Abilene just so I can get the help that I need. And lo and behold, I'm now telling y'all a story of how I dealt with loss, how I wanted to be in the coffin with my uncle, how I listened to God and God said, things will get better, but you have to hold on. You have to keep living. And I lived and I saw the life I'm now having now. I still miss my uncle. I really do. I miss, those breakfasts. I miss those, talks we had. I miss where he was teaching me things. I miss where we just watched TV. I miss our trips to the, Dollar Tree, or to get, these, the place where they used to have, cigarette stuff where I get Tootsie Rolls. I missed it all for me. But, those 20 years went by fast. I was 7 when he died, and I'm 27. And it's crazy how time flies. But I do hope my story does influence somebody. I do hope that my story does leave an impact in somebody's life. If you're going through the same thing, feel free to watch my video, how it felt to go in this state and how you overcame it and stuff. But grief hits at anybody. No matter how old you are, grief comes. But you have to live through it. Some people, it takes one day to get through the grief process. Sometimes some of them take an entire lifetime to get over it. But that's another reason why I don't like Valentine's Day, because it just reminds me of my uncle's death. I don't like because I was crying so much at school, I didn't get nothing in my Valentine's bags, what the other students did. But aside from that, I still nowadays, you deal with it. You live, long as I'm able to still live the life that I want to do. I can't be any less happy. So, thank you guys for watching my video. It will be on my Facebook page in case you want to watch it again. I know it's a long video, and I'm sorry for that, but it's just something that I wanted to say to celebrate my uncle's 20th year anniversary of his passing. So, deuces. Stay fresh.